Beth, it is such a shame that you weren't able to join us live in person, but I'm delighted that I've got this opportunity to speak to you before the event so that we can get all the juicy nuggets to those who are in the room. You've been at Patagonia for a while now, and you've been the Director of Environmental Action and EMEA there. Can you tell us a little bit about what your responsibilities are in that role, and just describe that a little bit for our audience who perhaps will have no idea what that actually means?
Sure, my pleasure. And it's a real pleasure to be here too. Before I explain what my role is, because my role has two parts, let me just talk for a second about how change happens in the world. If you address a problem like climate change, you have to address it at all levels, the individual, what you do, what the businesses do, and what the system does, what governments do. And unless you work at all levels, we will not succeed in addressing climate change. So for example, you can stop flying and take the train, but it's very painful to take the train now when there's not a good system. You as a business could put renewables on your roof, but actually, if that's really expensive, if there's barriers in place, then it's really, really hard to do. So as a business, you both need to work on what you do, and you need to have a voice in the outside world. So that's how my job works as well. I inspire our team within the organization to work on those issues, to cut their emissions, to work with the product team to encourage around the water pollution and how our supply chain works, and how we're influencing our wholesalers. But at the same time, we need to be influencing the world, and that's both as a business and driving ideas forward within the business world, and also in a sort of campaigning way to talk to people. So that's how my role splits. And on the campaigning side, we give 1% of our profits to NGOs, to charities, and they're small grassroots charities that we back. We also do storytelling around some of the really big and important issues. And some of those are around energy, some of those are around protecting natural spaces.
So I love what you're saying there, because it isn't just about thinking within the organization. We're so interconnected nowadays that we can't just think about what we're doing ourselves within an organization. We have to think about how all of those parts come together. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people in the room who've been watching the news recently and seen one heck of an announcement that came out a couple of weeks ago from your founder, Yvonne, who announced a restructuring of the company. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and why is this being done?
Yeah, first to say, I think every staff member who works at Patagonia is incredibly proud at the moment. Yvonne Chenard is really a leader, and it's very inspiring for us, and I hope for the business world. Why did he do it? Well, he did it because we're running out of time. It's really obvious. If you think about emissions themselves, our emissions need to be going down in 2025. That's in less than 2 years, and right now they're on their way up still. So, and we need to be doing that. We need to be protecting 30% of land and seas if we're going to have like a habitable world to live in and food to eat. And what's so interesting is that of all the giving that's in the world, only 2% thereabouts goes into the environment and protecting our world, and that's madness. We depend on the world that we live in order to live our lives, to have our businesses, and it's just insane that we're watching it slip away from us. So I think it was driven out of passion.
I mean, big problems require big changes, and it sounds like rather than Patagonia is known for taking incredible steps, but this is this is a leap, really, isn't it? It's saying we've really put a stake in the ground and we're not messing around here at all.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think you need to put values and mission into business, because at the moment it's strictly for shareholder value, short-term profits, and that is destroying our world. It's leading to extractive capitalism, and that's not the world we want. We want regenerative capitalism, a way that we can, business can live side by side in the natural world. So what Yvonne Chenard is trying to do with the structure that he's created, which is one where he can keep control and the company can continue to generate profits that will go into nature, is to try to show to other businesses that they should be finding and thinking innovatively about how they can do the same thing.
It brings me really beautifully onto my next question, which is around an understanding of sustainability. I mean, it's a term that's bounded about so much nowadays, but how does Patagonia understand sustainability? How do you define sustainability and a sustainable business?
Yeah, you see, we don't use the word sustainability because it's not very honest. And at Patagonia, we really try to be honest with ourselves. Every time we sell a jacket, we create a problem. Full stop. There's nothing we can do about it. Takes emissions, it pollutes, and we have to get it somewhere. So the only way to really solve that is to sell less and to make sure that everything is circular in what you do. And we're a long way from that. So we're pretty humble, as in we've got a really big problem and we're not anywhere near close enough to where we need to be. And yes, 75% of our materials are renewables, 85% is fair trade, but it's not good enough. And I think that's why we avoid that word. I think we need to be honest with ourselves about what's happening. And until we can improve and until the system change, you can't really be sustainable.
I find that fascinating that you say we've got to be honest and we're not sustainable, coming from Patagonia, which is one of these organizations that's seen as leading the way in us being more sustainable. For you to say, here we go, let's just face facts. We're in business, we're creating part of the problem, and either we don't sell anything or we have to have a better approach. It's quite a revolutionary way, and some would say, of thinking about how we should be thinking about our businesses.
It absolutely is. And I think, one of the questions that Yvonne struggled with when he was thinking about what to do with the company is, should you shut it down? Because it is causing a problem. But if you shut it down, then you don't demonstrate that it can be done. And you don't have leaders showing other businesses, this is how you do it, or let's work on it together, or let's work together to influence governments so that we get a level playing field, so that we're moving forward with energy and not backwards into band-aids and fossil fuel, dirty fossil fuel. We need to be speaking together with other businesses. And if we were to, and unless we're a business, we can't do that. So that's why he's done it the way that he has, keeping us in business, hoping that we can lead and get other businesses to join us on this journey.
You have to be in the game to change the game, as they like to say.
Exactly.
So, I mean, Patagonia has been going since 1973, and the company's tried to become more and more sustainable year on year. And I know you have the way that you like to think about that word, sustainability.
Yeah.
But what would you say it have been some of the most significant decisions and milestones that may have that maybe have also been the biggest challenges that the company's faced over the last few years?
Yeah, well, just start with the decisions. One of the most important decisions the company made from day one was designing for quality and for repairability. And right from day one, we had that ironclad guarantee, which is you can return anything to us and we'll fix it. And that was from the 1970s. And lots of companies are saying, oh, we'll repair. But it's different because you're not designing for repair. You're not really thinking about what the zipper is and making sure that that is going to be working 20 years from now or can be repaired. And that puts cost in the business. Switching to organic cotton puts cost into the business, but it's the right way to do it. And I think that's that value of doing it the right way for the planet, and the right way for reliability has just underpinned everything that we've done as a company going forward. And yeah, there's been loads and loads of tough decisions to make, but it's and sometimes we don't know the solutions. Like I talked earlier about cutting emissions on our supply chain. 90% of our emissions come from our supply chain. We don't control that. It's bloody difficult. We have ideas, but we don't have the solutions to how to fix that. But we're working on it. And so I think that's the thing, it's really hard. And every person within our businesses, every salesperson has to make a decision. What's the most profitable thing? And at the same time, make it a second time and say, okay, now what's the right thing to do? So there's dual decision making in every role. And that's really tough. And But what's good about it is that it gives authenticity. You know, what people like about Patagonia is it's for real, right? So, people buy into the brand because of that. They believe in the brand. We're innovating all the time, and our staff retention is fantastic. There's lots of good things that come out of authenticity that have allowed us to thrive and to become a billion-dollar company. We could grow much faster than we choose to grow. We hold our growth back because it's the right thing to do, because of the issue of damage.
It's so beautiful to hear you talk about the two decisions that are made back to back. We have to decide what's going to be profitable, and then we have to decide what's the right thing to do. And that second decision point is so interwoven into the business, and a business that's grown to a multi-billion-pound business, multi-billion-dollar business, is hope for other organizations out there who perhaps have been thinking it's either or. We're either going to do the right thing, or we're going to do the most profitable thing, or we'll get to the right thing later. I think there's a lot of inspiration in there for us to take from. One last question for you. Our audience is highly interested in building sustainable businesses. You had some advice to give us based on all the years at Patagonia and the changes that you've seen at that time. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs who want to make their businesses sustainable?
Right. Well, the first thing is put your values in your mission. What customer problem are you solving in a way that builds and solves a societal problem? Customer, society. If you have your values in your mission, then it will trickle down into every role that you have. And the second piece of advice is split your roles. So in other words, don't put your sustainability and CSR person in the corner. Put sustainability into everyone's role. Your job is to deliver this mission, this customer value, and this social mission. You have to make this double decision. Every person has that responsibility. Grow slowly. You've got to that's the third point, which is if it's really hard. I know about cash flow problems. I think one of the reasons Yvon Chouinard was able to maintain Patagonia with its values was that he grew slowly and steadily. You can put it in your business plan. You can cost it out. You can, if you do it carefully, you don't have to make that trade-off. If you grow too quickly, you probably will. And the last piece of advice I'd say is don't do it alone. We as businesses need to lean on each other. We can't solve these problems alone. We can't speak out to government alone. We need to be part of groups, sustainable business groups, responsible business groups, speaking out together, working together, and together we'll solve these problems. And I think that's really important. So those would be my 4 suggestions.
They're so powerful in their own right as well. I mean, you've crammed them in super quickly there, and yet there's so much to each of those points, and it's such an incredible inspiration. I think it's a great opportunity to remind people why they're here at the Impact Festival, and that the reason for this is it actually gives you a great opportunity to do at least one of those things on Beth's list, which is to work together and collaborate with each other. If there was one way for people to connect with you at Patagonia, what would that be? Like, what one thing would you really want to invite people to do now as a result of listening to you? If you could just say, here you go. If there's only one thing you take from what you've heard from Beth, and there should definitely be a lot more than that, to be honest, because it's been full of absolute gold nuggets, what would that be?
Use your voice. Don't just think you can work on yourself. Work with others, and together let's use our voice to change the world.
Beth, thank you so much for spending this time with you. Again, it's slightly heart-wrenching that you haven't been able to join us live in person, but it's been absolutely wonderful to have spent this time talking to you today. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. It's been really a pleasure.